Good morning and welcome to worship with First Congregational UCC in Asheville, North Carolina. It is good to be gathered for worship this morning. We are an open and affirming congregation. That means we welcome into full membership. That means you get on the committees and everything. We welcome into full membership anyone who wants to join with our community. And of course, that includes anyone from the LGBTQ plus community. You know, it hit us a few months ago. I mean, this is a big commitment of ours. O&A, open and affirming is what that means. And we realized we don't have anything on the outside of our church to signal that welcome to people. You know, it would be lovely if every church community, every community of faith didn't have to put something outside that symbolizes their commitment to welcoming everyone, but that's not yet the world we live in. And so we knew we wanted folks to know that they are welcome at First Congregational. So we created a banner, and you see that here. Faith, hope, and love. You see first the rainbow, welcoming the LGBTQ plus community. But we realized when we were talking about it, that wasn't the only welcome we wanted to extend. And so you also will see the pink and blue. That comes from the trans flag, the flag for transgender people. And then you also see the brown and black. That signifies our strong commitment to racial justice. We stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters with black and brown skin. And so it's a symbol, it's a banner, but it lets you know, and we want you to know, that no matter who you are, no matter where you are on your life's journey, you are welcome. Let me say that again. You are welcome at First Congregational in Asheville. You're also welcome to join us as we take a moment to gather ourselves for this moment of worship. And we do that at First Congregational by taking a moment to settle and then to breathe in God's welcome and to breathe out God's welcome. We breathe in God's welcome. We breathe out
Welcome. All are welcome at First Congregational. All are not only welcomed here, but also truly accepted. Thanks be to God for creating each of us and for loving each of us just as we are. Here you are not only welcome and accepted, but also celebrated. Come, let us worship a God of love in the midst of a congregation that loves.
Who will lead the pilgrims? but the threats of dire predictions cause us to withdraw in pain. May your blazing Felix spirit resurrect the church again. God of rainbow, fiery pillar, waiting where the eagles soar. We your people, ours the journey, now and ever, now and ever, now and evermore.
I'm Richard Jones, and I wanted to share one of my favorite coming out stories. After my grandmother passed away in her late 80s, I had a conversation with my cousin, and my cousin told me that my grandmother knew all about my lifestyle, even though we never had any conversation about that while she was alive. I thought that was a pretty cool thing to learn after she had already passed away from my cousin. So that's one great coming out story. And I had another one was that when I had the talk with my mother, of course, we all have a talk with our mother like this. And she stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Son, you don't have to say anything. I already know."
As far as coming out, I've always known I was gay, just didn't have a word for it until I was about 12. And I read a book called The Well of Loneliness. I went on being myself until I went to college and met a bunch of other gay people, particularly women, and went home that following summer. My mother found a letter I had written to a girlfriend and not finished, and confronted me with it and said, "What is this about?" And I said, "Well, it's about what it says." And she said, "I think there's something wrong with you." And she said, "But I'm glad I found this instead of your sister." And I said, "Well, that would be unlikely because she's in Maine and we're in Florida." Then 3.5 years later, I was outed by a friend in my dorm who went to a clinic and told a psychiatrist that she was gay and I was too. That went to my college dean, who called me in and told me that because I was who I was, I was going to be kicked out of school. And so I was. And the rest of the story is I survived, graduated and became who I am. There you go.
It can be very hard when you first come out, especially at age 50. But with God's help and with the love and support of others around you, and with time, it will get better.
I knew in kindergarten I was different. However, I was in my mid-20s before I came out to myself. I was 40 when I experienced myself as God's beloved lesbian daughter. When I was 46, I left my profession in the United Methodist Church, moved from Iowa, and came out, never looking back. This was a significant part of my spiritual journey and my healing, a cause for great celebration.
Okay, the year was 1975, and I was 40 years old. I decided at that point that I was a lesbian. I had denied it all of my life until then, and I didn't know any lesbians. So it was an effort to find lesbians in the community that I was living in Sacramento. Found a group called Women Over 35, and it was for lesbians. They had a monthly potluck. Now this was in 1975. you found a number to call. You had to call that number before they would give you a location of where the potluck was being held. It was always in private homes because no one wanted to be seen in public. So coming out is a long process. I was married for 30 years at the time I finally separated. I was 7 years working through the process of coming out and acknowledging who I was. And actually, you spend a lifetime of coming out every time you meet somebody new. So it isn't just a one-time situation. I came out to my mother 15 years later because I was so afraid of rejection and didn't know how my mother would handle it. Very religious person, very anti-gay, and all I had heard all my life was anti-gay. So that's no doubt why it took me 40 years to acknowledge who I was and accept it.
A young man, about 14, came to me. He was a member of my congregation. And he shared with me a letter from Dear Abby, in which he had written to her about his first homosexual experience he had with a cousin. And he wondered, what should he do? Her response was, talk to your minister. So he came to me. He had a very loving and what turned out to be understanding and supportive mother, but his father was an Archie Bunker. But that was the beginning of my experience with gays, although I'd had some earlier experiences. And it opened up the world to me, and I began to have some other experiences long before I came to Asheville.
Hi, friends. At this point in the service, if you're paying close attention, you may have noticed that today is a very special day in the life of our church because today we are celebrating Pride. So you may have seen a lot of rainbows, which is fantastic and something I love. You can see Valerie and I have our rainbow flag up today celebrating Pride as well, with all of the members in our church who are part of the LGBTQ community. I should add the plus in there, LGBTQ plus community. And so it's important that we recognize this day because for so long in the life of the capital C church or churches all around the world, people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community have been pushed to the margins and have been told that God doesn't necessarily love them, that God did not create them to be LGBTQ. However, we know and we acknowledge that God has created every person perfectly, and God has created every person to be in God's image. How wonderful is that? So God does not make mistakes. You know, in today's sermon or today's scripture for Pastor Kim's sermon, we read this passage. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. And that comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 40. Now, Jesus is telling us here that we should welcome all people into our homes, into our churches, into our communities, into our open arms, and to show everyone love. Because essentially, what Jesus is saying here is if we welcome someone else, we are welcoming Jesus. And not only are we welcoming Jesus, we are also welcoming God. And so remember that as you go about your day, that every person is created in God's image, and that we should welcome God with open arms, welcome our neighbors with open arms, no matter who they are or who they love. So remember that as we celebrate those in our church who are part of the LGBTQ community, that we love them and we care for them, and God cares for them, and God loves them. Now, if you will, take the hand of someone who is close to you, and if you are by yourself, give yourself a great big hug as we pray. Gracious God, thank you for loving us. Thank you for creating us as perfect images of you. God, you are perfect, and we love you, and we know you love us. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
A reading from Matthew. Don't let people intimidate you. Nothing is concealed that will not be revealed, and nothing is hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in darkness, speak in the light. What you hear in private, proclaim from the housetops. Don't fear those who can deprive the body of life, but can't destroy the soul. Rather, fear the one who can destroy both body and soul in Gehenna. Are not the sparrows sold for pennies? Yet not a single sparrow falls to the ground without your Abba God's knowledge. As for you, every hair of your head has been counted, so don't be afraid of anything. You are worth more than an entire flock of sparrows. Those who welcome you also welcome me, and those who welcome me welcome the one who sent me. If we respond to these words, then for us they have become the word of the still speaking God. Thanks be to God.
In our first planning meeting for today's worship service, we tried to come up with a passage of scripture that could guide our planning. You know, the Bible has been used so often to beat up on people who aren't part of the heterosexist norm. So we thought it was important to have some scripture in today's service. And so we sat and we pondered, and the sound of the crickets got louder and louder. And so finally I just punted and I said, okay, let's just go to the lectionary, see what that text is. Maybe we can do something with that. Well, you've just heard it. It was perfect, wasn't it? For a Pride Sunday celebration and for National Coming Out Day. Don't let people intimidate you, Jesus says. Nothing is concealed that will not be revealed, and nothing is hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in darkness, What does Jesus tell you in the darkness, in the quiet of your own room, your own mind, your own heart? Away from the naysayers and haters and those who would reject you, at your core, what is your truth? In the darkness, what does God, your Creator, what does God say to you about your creation? Who are you created to be? My own spiritual journey took a sharp turn for the authentic when the words of Psalm 51:6 seeped into my deepest self. Behold, thou dost desire truth in the inmost being, and in the hidden part thou wilt make me know wisdom. I was still Southern Baptist then. That's why you get the King James Version in that. But that's all right. The word still seeped in. So, what truth lies in your inmost being? I've been humbled hearing the stories some of our folks have told about coming out, especially those who came out later in life. When I hear what Jesus says about everything being hidden, now being revealed, I take that to mean that every one of God's creatures is called to be who they are created to be. When people keep hidden something as important to who they are as their sexuality or their gender identity, it's a terrible weight. It's exhausting. For folks who have hidden who they are for decades of their lives, it shapes who you are, right? The church my husband and I served in Georgia was kicked out of the Georgia Baptist Convention 21 years ago for being open and affirming. Our United Church of Christ denomination ordained our first openly gay minister in 1973. And the UCC affirmed marriage equality in 2005, which was a whole decade before the country did. So many strides have been made for folks in the LGBTQ plus community. And yet, it's still important, vital, to celebrate folks who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersexual, asexual, pansexual, and the whole rest of the LGBTQI plus alphabet. And it's especially important for churches to celebrate folks in the LGBTQ plus community because, quite frankly, churches have done more than just about any other institution in existence to wound people because of who they are created by God to be. As we were planning the service, we thought it important for me as a Christian pastor to speak a word. And so today I have two things I want to say. First, it is my Christian faith that has taught me to see and honor the beauty of God's creation in every single human being. If someone has been created to love someone of their same gender, it's my Christian faith that leads me to celebrate that person. If someone is created to love people of any gender, it is my Christian faith that leads me to celebrate that person. If someone discovers their sex at birth doesn't match their gender, my Christian faith leads me to celebrate that person's true self. It's true. People of Christian faith have done tremendous damage to the spirits of many people because of who they are or who they love. But the God I believe in, the Jesus I follow, they celebrate every human being as they are created to be. So that's the first thing. I celebrate people in the LGBTQ community because, not in spite of, the fact that I follow Jesus. Here's a story to introduce the second thing I want to say. In 2008, I attended a 10-day retreat for Protestant clergy women at a Benediction monastery in Indiana. As the cocktail hour drew to a close, which already let me know I was home, Sister Luke, the director of the program, sent us off to our rooms with these words. She said, "Welcome. We just want you to know how precious you are." Frazzled from our travels and church responsibilities, caught up in our roles as pastors, they were strange words to hear. But we all knew in that moment, Sister Luke meant those words. In the 12 years since, Sister Luke and all the sisters have continued to show us how precious we are in their eyes and in God's. So, at First Congregational, we welcome you because to welcome you is to welcome God. We welcome you at First Congregational because we are followers of Jesus. And as followers of Jesus, we want you to know this one thing. We want you to know how precious you are.
Please join me in the prayers of the people. Loving God, we gather on this National Coming Out Day, having traveled various emotional paths. Some of us have experienced the pain of rejection, isolation, and judgment. Others, deep concern for the well-being of those that we love. And still others are preparing to embark on a journey of questioning and discovery. Release us from any guilt and shame caused by our lying and deception. The grief of a history filled with deadly disease, abuse, suicide, and murders, and the anger resulting from families, churches, and governments that have failed us. O God, in your mercy, give us peace. We are thankful for the help of clergy, elected officials, and judges who have dedicated themselves to working for justice, ending discrimination based on gender identity or sexual preference, and bringing about marriage equality. Because of their leadership, we can begin to enjoy our careers, our relationships, and our lives simply by being who we were born to be. O God, in your mercy, multiply our joys. Strengthen our resolve to do justice by working for your kingdom on earth, to show mercy by searching with your eyes for the sacred indwelling in every living creature, and to walk humbly by honoring our responsibilities as much as we value our rights. We ask for your perseverance to continue through the progress towards a fair and equitable world. O God, in your mercy, fill us with your love. Regardless of our circumstances, we ask for your blessings on our journey. May we come to embrace and wholeheartedly believe that each of us is the perfect creation you meant for us to be, never questioning the holiness of the works of your hand. For we are made in your image and breathed into life by your Spirit. May each of us value the beautiful person you have blessed us into being. O God, in your mercy, give us pride. Amen and amen.
Well over 20 years ago, I was called to a meeting by Joe Hoffman. There were probably 6 or 8 of us there. And the meeting was led by Noel Nickel. We didn't know what it was about, but what it was about was to explore our ministry to gays and the whole gay family. They were private, confidential conversations. We simply explored our feelings and what we wanted to do, but it was the beginning. And it led to some open conversations throughout our congregation, which eventually led to our becoming an open and affirming congregation. And that experience and the experience of being able to share in our congregation with the many gays and lesbians and others in this open and just and loving community has just been an inspiration for me and a deep privilege to be able to share in part of this journey and the ongoing experience.
I was drawn to the First Congregational United Church of Christ several years ago and was immediately delighted to find out that it was open and affirming for folks of all races, nationalities, and sexual orientations. And it just really excited me to find out that I could be a Christian and gay simultaneously. My whole life I had thought that those two things were mutually exclusive, and I learned at FCUCC that they can very easily go together in the same life. So that's what drew me to FCUCC, and looking out and seeing gay folks in the congregation holding hands and arms around each other, really, that's all it took. So come see us.
The open and affirming banner greeted Ellie and I on August 5th, 2012, on our first visit to FCUCC. I was immediately drawn in by the welcome, the sense of community and joy, the prominent presence of gay folks, the inclusive language of God and people, and the commitment to justice. I never looked back. I have only celebrated.
I moved from California to Asheville in 2009. I spent 3 years looking for a United Methodist Church. I counted up this afternoon and there were 7 that I and my partner visited. We found a couple of churches that would tolerate us. The others would not even do that. 2 ministers that we requested a visit from never responded to our request. So in 2012, we, after 3 years, attended FCUCC. We had been to a couple of meetings there and some kind of a play one time, and we knew that there were gay and lesbians that were involved in the church. We went to the retreat right away. It was 2012 when we went to the first retreat. We joined the church the following February. We found that FCUCC welcomed us with open arms.
Our former church was welcoming, but not very accommodating. We were not allowed to get married in the church, or anywhere for that matter, by that pastor. At First Congregational, we found a church where the pastor would marry us in the sanctuary where we worship. We felt not only welcome, but celebrated. We have a home at First Congregational.
My wife and I lived in Asheville for many years, and we looked into churches, several of them, and we went around to different churches, and we never really felt comfortable in any of them. And it wasn't really because we were gay. It was just, it wasn't, didn't meet our needs. We went to FCUCC. The first time we went, Shannon Spencer was preaching, and she was so open, and I looked around the church and there were many people there. I was greeted, I was hugged, we were both accepted, and we had found a home. We joined the church soon thereafter, and I have never felt more loved, cared for, and useful since I joined that church. And I can be exactly who I am all the time. And it's an amazing thing. It frees you up to be a really giving part of a Christian community.
Oscar Wilde went to prison rather than to deny who he was as a person. I am so thankful I go to a church where people can be honest and truthful about who they are. And my life is so much richer because of my dear friends at this church.
And I came from an open and affirming church in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I was searching for an open and affirming church, not because I'm a lesbian, but because I believe that is the way a church should be. And my daughter had lived here, and she knew that this would be the church that I would feel at home at. But I can't, the friendships, the growing, do you remember the time when the gay marriage amendment passed? I was so excited to be in a church that could really celebrate that and to have been a part of that. So I'm glad I'm here. It's a wonderful place to be. Look at our flag and find us.
We've just heard how important this church is for folks in our FCUCC community. With so many Christian churches out there not welcoming others as they have been welcomed, it is vital that communities like this one continue to exist. We must be here to welcome others, all others, as we ourselves have been welcomed. And so, as an act of worship, and out of our commitment to extending an extravagant welcome, we all are invited to give as we are able.
Please join me for our prayer of dedication. Generous and merciful God, we thank you for the abundance in our lives and the love and the grace that is constantly available to each of us. Forgive us when we are stiff-necked, paying more attention to the inconsequential matters of life than we do to your persistent offer of true joy. Help us to rejoice in the banquet of life we have received, and inspire us to share this invitation with exuberance to people from all walks of life by striving for justice, sharing love, and making peace. Bless these offerings in their use towards that end. We ask all these things in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
About the impact of the Marriage Equality Act upon me. It was significant and beyond my dreams. It enabled Tony to be officially my spouse, and I could call him husband on official documents and to other people. Tony and I had already been together over 30 years when the Marriage Equality Act was passed. And in 2008, we were on vacation in Canada, and on the spur of the moment decided to get married legally in Canada, which would be legal in all the provinces, unlike the United States, which was one state at a time. So that was a civil ceremony. And we decided in 2015 to have a ceremony, in a private ceremony in the church at First Congregational with Pastor Joe Hoffman officiating. And Tony and I had each written something to say to each other and had not read each other's thoughts beforehand. But both of us said the same thing because we had gone back and forth on this phrase over the years at various times. And the phrase is, we are an entity for eternity. And you know, that's a long time.
Early on, we were allowed to file as domestic partners so that some of the benefits, we could get like health insurance and perhaps retirement from our partner. However, we still had to have a will that covered a number of things that were not covered by that domestic partner. Now with the marriage equality, we get all of those benefits immediately when we get married.
Just quickly, we had been together some 25 or so years and went and got married in 2012 up in Massachusetts. Then when marriage equality came through in North Carolina, it meant the world because, like Ellie just said, my wife died a year and a half ago, and it has made all the difference in the state and everything that had to do with being married. It was a joint tax return, and it has made all the difference.
Not all LGBTQ couples want to get married, and not all heterosexual couples desire to be married. But it is so nice for all of us to have the option.
You
As we leave this worship service celebrating the beautiful diversity of God's children, know this: you are precious. Precious. Precious in God's eyes. Forever and always precious. Amen.